Hello friends, and welcome back to Stories About Entitled People. Let's kick off today's video with a story that takes us to the canals of Venice, where a seemingly innocent boat ride turned into a scam until one mother flipped the script with nerves of steel. But before we begin, best way to support our channel is to leave comments, like, and subscribe at the turned on bell so you don't miss the new video every single day. Here we go. The calmest person on the boat was also the most dangerous. For them. This one's about my late mother, a woman who frankly had zero tolerance for nonsense and absolutely no problem standing up to shady people even in the middle of a foreign country. She wasn't loud or flashy about it, she was just quietly fierce. The kind of person who didn't raise her voice but somehow still scared the hell out of you when she got serious. I was around 7 or 8 years old at the time. We were on a family holiday in Italy, one of those big summer trips. My parents hadn't traveled much before that, especially not internationally. It was actually my dad's first time abroad, and he was very much still figuring things out. Everything was new to all of us, from the road signs to the currency to the language. On this particular day, we had driven out to Venice and were planning to spend the afternoon exploring the city. We arrived at the edge of Venice in our car and parked somewhere just outside the main part of town. My parents began looking around, trying to figure out how to get across the water to the center of Venice, ideally via one of the public ferries. Problem was, they didn't speak Italian, and nobody around seemed to speak English well enough to offer any clear directions. That's when this guy shows up, like some overly helpful stranger out of nowhere. He looked local, seemed friendly enough, and motioned for my parents to follow him toward a small motorboat. There was another couple already seated on board, and the guy gave my parents a fairly reasonable quote for a ride across. Seemed legit. Sketchy maybe, but not outrageously so. My parents agreed, figuring it was the simplest option. We all climbed into the boat, and that's when things went south. As soon as we were on the water, too far from land to simply hop off, the tone shifted completely. The guy and his two partners suddenly changed the price. Not by a little either. They more than tripled it. And they weren't asking politely. They were loud, insistent, and just threatening enough to make it clear that nobody was getting off the boat unless they paid up. There was a long, tense back and forth. The other couple was clearly panicking. My parents tried to reason with them, but these guys weren't interested in negotiation. Eventually, my parents and the other couple just gave in. This was the 80s, remember? No credit cards, no mobile phones. You carried your travel money in cash. So both couples handed over practically everything they had. These guys cleaned us out. The boat finally pulled up at a quiet canal-side dock. You could see the opening to St. Mark's Square at the end of the narrow passageway ahead. My mom, calm as ever, made sure she was the last person to disembark. Then, without a word, she reached behind the guy who'd taken the cash, who, unbelievably, had shoved the wad of money halfway into his back pocket, grabbed the entire bundle, and leapt off the boat. She didn't hesitate, no dramatic wind-up, just snatch and go. The men on the boat were caught completely off guard. For a few stunned seconds, they didn't move. By the time they processed what had just happened, my mom was already walking briskly toward the square, and we were all moving quickly behind her. The passageway opened into a crowded piazza, and once we were in that sea of tourists, there was no way the men could follow without drawing attention to themselves. Back in the square, my mom calmly divided up the money, giving the other couple back what they had lost and making sure we had our own funds returned. Somehow, she'd grabbed the entire stash. In the end, the boat scam was a complete failure for them. The trip to Venice didn't cost us a dime, and more importantly, my mom had turned a nasty, frightening situation into a kind of quiet victory. Even now, all these years later, I still think about that moment, about how cool she stayed. About the guts it took, and honestly, I'm still impressed. Wow, your mother was quite a smart and fast-thinking lady. Just think of how many tourists those creeps scammed. But not her. And our second story. Guy tries to extort our store over a dive watch, ends up in handcuffs. I work in the jewelry industry, and I've dealt with plenty of difficult customers. But this guy, he easily takes the cake. It happened last fall when I was working as an assistant at a small jewelry and watch repair shop. One day, a man came in with a diving watch, a waterproof one with a thick rubber strap and a clasp meant to expand over a wetsuit. He wanted the band resized to fit his son's wrist, With these kinds of straps, you actually trim the rubber to size. Once it's cut, there's no going back. I measured the kid's wrist carefully, double-checked the fit, and trimmed the strap. It fit perfectly. I could fit 2 fingers under the band, which is the standard for a proper fit. They left, and I figured that was the end of it. Not even 2 minutes later, the man storms back in, this time without his son, and starts yelling that I made the strap too small. I ask him to bring the kid back in so I can take another look. He does, and sure enough, it still fits just fine. But instead of accepting that, the guy launches into a dramatic rant about how expensive the watch is, how he bought it in Milan, and how I've ruined it. He demands a replacement strap. We explain that we'll order one, even though it's not a major brand and parts aren't easy to come by. Still, we know where to look and place the order. A few weeks pass and he drops off a packet of paperwork, basically a demand for nearly $300. He wants reimbursement for a wire transfer fee, long-distance calls to Italy, and a replacement strap that cost twice what we were already sourcing. The packet also includes some snide handwritten notes about my supposed incompetence and how we're just a small store that doesn't know how to handle a luxury watch. My boss takes one look and says, absolutely not. We weren't about to pay for something we were already resolving. So of course the guy shows up again, furious that we won't reimburse him. He starts yelling and waving papers around, threatening to destroy our reputation and saying, we haven't heard the last of him. Eventually we call security and he leaves. But an hour later he comes back with his kid. This grown man had made protest signs that said things like, they butchered my watch, and stood outside our store waving them around like he was on strike. Worse, he encouraged his son, who couldn't have been older than 11, to go up to customers walking in and tell them not to shop with us. That was the final straw. We called the police. The cops showed up, and while he didn't get tased like I secretly hoped, they weren't amused. Our property manager got involved and banned him from the entire shopping center. He even got put in handcuffs briefly and issued a trespassing ticket. Thankfully, that was the end of it. But the worst part wasn't the yelling or the fake invoice. It was dragging his kid into it. Watching him teach his son that throwing tantrums is how you get your way was just depressing. Some customers are rude, some are entitled, but this one, he was just pathetic. Good on your manager for not giving in to him. That's a ridiculous request from that guy. Did he know that your store had a new band on order? Sounds like you guys were being really reasonable replacing the band when you didn't do anything wrong in the first place. And our next story. Gonzo thought my cash drawer grew change while he browsed snacks. Here's my nomination for dimmest bulb in the chandelier of customers. Gonzo, who as of yesterday has me convinced that he has zero idea as to how money actually works. I've been suspecting this for a long time because Gonzo's the kind of guy who, upon getting paid, will spend a huge chunk of it on lottery. Gonzo's the kind of guy who will take over the checkout counter with buying scratcher after scratcher and scratches them right there at the register. He has no concept that other people want to pay for their stuff too, and he would hold up the line for 20 minutes if you let him, but I don't let him. Gonzo's that kind of customer that you have to treat like a naughty child and tell him, no, it's other people's turn now. So yesterday I come into the gas station on mid-shift, starting at 2 p.m., and Gonzo was already there. He wasn't in line, but on the phone off to the side. Shift change went as per usual. With my quick count of the minimum balance drawer and all that happy crap, my workday began. Within minutes, Gonzo was at my counter asking for cigarettes, which he paid for by card. All well and good. Next, he requested his first lotto tickets of the day, which came to $24. He presented me with a crisp $100 bill, whereupon he was informed that I couldn't take that. I just didn't have enough change. I just opened and he'd just seen me do it. Synopses were almost firing when he asked the lady behind him for change, but she also didn't have it. So here's where it gets stupid. Gonzo gets out of line since he can't pay, and the lady behind him pays for her stuff by card. There was no one else behind her, so he steps up and asks for the same tickets as before, brandishing the same $100 bill. WTF, I don't have the change. He's informed curtly again. Okay, Gonzo says, wanders around the store a bit, then comes back and says he wants $20 worth of gas. Before I do anything, I must insist, show me the money. So he pulls out the $100 bill. Raising my voice for that rare kind of cookie customer who's just not getting it otherwise, I can't take that bill. If you show it to me again, I'm kicking you out. Fortunately, Gonzo left on his own. People never seem to understand they can wipe out your cash drawer like that. You have to have money to give other people change too. And our last story. Entitled neighbors declared war over our tree. We ended it with police charges and a neighborhood reckoning. Our neighbors are honestly just huge jerks and kind of ruining why we moved into a quiet suburban neighborhood back in 2017. Let's just call them the Leaf Mafia. From day one, they had a bizarre obsession with our tree. Yeah, we've got a big one in the back, and yeah, trees drop leaves and sticks. It's kind of their thing. But the way these people acted, you'd think our oak was personally mugging them every autumn. It started small. Every fall, we'd find mountains of leaves and twigs mysteriously migrating from their yard to ours. I'm not talking about a few blown over by the wind. I'm talking shoveled and thrown across the property line. I once watched the woman haul a literal snow shovel full of wet leaves from the opposite side of her house and dump it in our driveway. Actual garbage mixed in. Just petty, mean-spirited stuff. She could have walked 5 more feet to her own bin, but no, she preferred to make it our problem. When I confronted her and told her to get off our property, she flat out refused. We ended up having to call the police. Only then did she scurry off in her car like a raccoon caught red-handed. So we installed cameras, pointed right at our driveway, our backyard, and every inch they like to treat as their personal dumping ground. And oh boy, did those cameras pay off. We caught their grandkids letting their dog poop in our yard without ever picking it up, leaves being blown directly at our fence line with a gas-powered blower, their teenage granddaughter grabbing sticks and hurling them into our garden bed like it was a competition. We called the cops again. This time we pressed the issue. Police came, gave them a formal warning, and we followed up with official no trespassing paperwork filed with the city. We even posted signs. That should have been the end of it, but they escalated. A week later, we get a visit from the city's building commission. Someone had filed a concern about our small retaining wall being dangerously leaning. It's not. It's on our property, barely slanted, and if it ever did fall, it would land on our own driveway. Still, we humored the inspector who, surprise, found no issue. It was clearly just their revenge attempt. But it didn't stop there. You see, we have a modest above-ground pool in the backyard. We installed it 2 summers ago. The kids love it. We keep it clean, and it's fully fenced off. Or so we thought. This summer, we noticed the water turning green fast. Not your typical, oops, forgot to shock it green. It was swamp level nasty. We checked the filter, tested the chemicals, couldn't figure it out until I checked the cameras. There, plain as day, was one of their grandsons, maybe 16, wearing a hoodie despite it being 85 degrees, hopping our fence, unscrewing the pump access panel, and dumping something into the water. 2 days later, our entire backyard stank like a bog. We took that footage straight to the police. This time, they didn't just write a warning, they pressed charges for trespassing and vandalism. The kids' parents tried to argue it was a prank. The officer shut that down fast. It's only a prank if nobody gets hurt or property isn't damaged. That's not a prank, that's a crime. They had to pay for a full pool drain, chemical treatment, and filter replacement, nearly $2,000. We got every cent back. Word got around the neighborhood. Suddenly, the other neighbors started coming forward too. Turns out we weren't their only victims. Loud music at night, threats over minor property line disputes, intimidation tactics with their obnoxious pickup trucks, even slashing someone's tire over a parking disagreement. 3 months later, a for sale sign popped up in their yard. No goodbye, no warning. They were just gone. The house sold to a quiet retired couple who garden and are generally very nice people. The joys of suburban living. You move in hoping for peace and quiet, and instead you inherit a turf war over tree leaves. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.